Thank you very much for a warm welcome and such a nice introduction. It is thrilling for me to be standing here in the second time that we're doing this conference. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be speaking to a crowd of people that just while walking in, I met someone from Russia, I met someone from the Netherlands, I met someone from Ukraine. So it's really exciting for someone like me that started with this as just an idea 2.5, 3 years ago to see this actually coming to life. Now, in front of you, you see a falcon. You see a drawing of a falcon. Is that clearly a falcon? Yes. Now, the reason I put this falcon up there is, and the gentleman that I met from Netherlands just now made it clear to me, it's always difficult for people to remember my name. And my name is actually quite simple, 4 letters, and it means falcon in Arabic. So I'm hoping that every time you see a falcon, and there's much of them around here in the UAE, you remember this guy that was talking about blockchain. So I have this title of blockchain evangelist. And here's where I get into conflicts with a lot of my colleagues, because I am not a blockchain expert. I want this to be said straight off the bat. Now, I've been dealing with clients around the Middle East and Africa region to define their blockchain agenda. I think I'm spending no less than 3 hours a day reading about it, but I don't think this makes me an expert. Blockchain is so new, no one can claim expertise in it. Now, if you want to be an expert in cryptocurrency, you're an expert in economics, there's PhDs out there that you can gain. Yes, that gives you a certain amount of expertise. But blockchain is so new and so rapidly evolving, I don't think anyone is an expert out there. So yes, a blockchain evangelist, because I like this idea of blockchain. And I was thinking about, and it's always the most difficult, how to start this, that I have this engaging. So I was thinking about last year. And last year I finished with a quote, and it was, it's 1994 and blockchain is the internet. What would you do if you knew in 1994 that in 2017, blockchain would have this impact on life as we know it? And I was a bit taken aback just when I put this quote out there, because it's quite a bold statement to say, hey, what would you do if you knew how impactful this was? And I think it's a perfect place to start as well, because let's say last year you were here, and I see a lot of familiar faces. Last year you were here and you got really excited and you said, hey, blockchain, this really sounds like a good idea. So I'm going to take $1,000 and do something on blockchain with them. Now, my colleagues here will know it's abundantly difficult to tell people that blockchain is not cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency is not blockchain. So I spent the last 2 years, probably 2.5 years, talking to people about how it's not cryptocurrency and how it's not Bitcoin, and it's just one application of it. And the first question that people ask me when they meet me is, how do I buy Bitcoin? So let's say you left here and you said, I have $1,000 and I'm going to buy Bitcoin with them. So if you would have taken $1,000 last year, after we finished, and you would have put them into Bitcoin, then right now I would congratulate you to $16,000 in your pocket, roughly. Probably since this morning it's more. Now let's say you got so excited and you started reading about it and you read about this small little thing called Ether. And you took $1,000 and you bought $1,000 worth of Ether last year at the same time. Then now I'd be congratulating you to roughly $60,000. So you're welcome, I guess. So blockchain, cryptocurrencies is fast moving into mainstream. We now have banks out there that are talking about it. We have companies out there that are starting to adopt it. Heck, we have His Highness Sheikh Hamdan coming out and saying we want to be a blockchain-powered government, right? So last year, there was also a new concept, somewhat of a new concept in the blockchain space. And it was that blockchain should be adopted by organizations. And there I was arguing with the hardcore, let's say, Bitcoiners or the first movers on blockchain. Because they're saying, no, this needs to be open for all, it needs to be accessible to everyone, it needs to be something that isn't controlled. But Hyperledger was out there, a foundation that put industry giants together to talk about blockchain standards. And they had 100 members at the time, and there were so many people. They're saying, you know what, in a year's time, Hyperledger won't even be around because that concept of enterprise adoption of blockchain, it's not going to work. So last year, we had Hyperledger with 100 members. Today, we're talking about maybe 160 members. Ernst & Young, PwC, Samsung, Fujitsu, you name it, right? And now we don't even only have the Hyperledger Alliance, we have the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. And I mean, thank God for these guys, because that made Ethereum, the Ether price shoot up by 100-fold. Not 100-fold, but by a multitude. You have the B3I Alliance, which is the insurance industry coming together and saying, hey, this makes sense, let's get together and define standards. You have We Trade, which talk about how we can start trading on blockchain and we can move goods on blockchain, and the list goes on and on and on. So enterprise adoption for blockchain is real. It's not like last year. It's a thought that we're hoping that people take it. No, it's actually something that people are starting to embrace more and more. Now, the world that we live in lines with what we just said, considering that last year to this year, what kind of rapid change we've gone through, is changing a lot. And it's a quote that I came across 2-3 years ago by the former CEO of Google, who said that since the beginning of humankind, we created 5 exabytes of data, right? And for anyone, I didn't know what an exabyte is, so for anyone that's out there, so here is a gigabyte, and here's an exabyte, right? So we created 5 exabytes of data since the beginning of humankind. All of these, the ancient Romans, the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Persians, everything put together, 5 exabytes of information. Now, that's up until 2013, I think it was, 2003. Now, we create 5 exabytes of information every second day. Every time a plane takes off and lands, you have a terabyte of data. A terabyte of data, takeoff and landing, just in the plane. How much of that data is being used? Somewhere around 90% is not being used. So data is slowly but surely becoming the new commodity of the 21st century. And there's a reason why Facebook and Amazon and, all of these companies out there, I'm not on social media, so when I try to remember them, I tend to not be able to mention them. So, for example, what do we have? We have Facebook, we have Instagram, Snapchat. All of these companies are becoming billion-dollar corporations because they have our data, right? So data is slowly but surely becoming the new oil, right? And that's particularly interesting for the region here, because slowly but surely, states, cities, governments are moving into data sharing platforms, right? So this is going to be a very, very exciting and long day, and you're going to be hearing a lot of speakers. And to come back to the original topic that we started off with, which is blockchain, I'd like to show you a quick video of the World Economic Forum around blockchain.
Modern technology allows people to communicate directly. Voice and video calls, emails, pictures and instant messages travel directly from A to B, maintaining trust between individuals no matter how far apart they are. When it comes to money, people have to trust a third party to be able to complete a transaction. Blockchain technology is challenging the status quo in a radical way. By using math and cryptography, blockchain provides an open, decentralized database of any transaction involving value, money, goods, property, work, or even votes, creating a record whose authenticity can be verified by the entire community. The future global economy will move towards one of distributed property and trust, where anyone with access to the internet can get involved in blockchain-based transactions, and third-party trust organizations may no longer be necessary. The uses of blockchain technology are endless. Some expect that in less than 10 years it will be used to collect taxes. It will make it easier for immigrants to send money back to countries where access to financial institutions is limited. Financial fraud will be significantly reduced, as every transaction will be recorded on a public and distributed ledger, which will be accessible by anyone who has an internet connection. Think of it as wills and contracts that execute themselves, or dated proof of existence for ideas, much like a patent. Blockchain will become a global, decentralized source of trust, but not everyone is ready to embrace it. A huge proportion of trust services, from banking to notaries, will face challenges on price, volume, and in some cases, their very survival. Public authorities could find it more and more difficult to enforce traditional financial regulations due to the new possibilities offered by the Bitcoin network to bypass traditional financial intermediaries. Unimagined new networks will evolve to meet society's needs more cheaply and potentially more securely. Will governments, financial and legal institutions embrace blockchain? What will happen to the ones who don't?
So that's the World Economic Forum, and not me anymore, coming out there and say what will happen if we don't embrace blockchain. And I do draw a lot of happiness out of this, because we were talking about this two and a half years ago, and people were saying, hey guys, this is just a fad, it's going to fade away, right? But now we're talking about what will happen to governments that don't embrace blockchain. And I did start off in my very first speech and say governments will not exist the same way that we know them, or it's going to disrupt governments. Then I realized it's a very politically incorrect statement to make, so I stopped saying it. But the matter of the fact is, government as we know it is facing a lot of difficulties. And in here I always like to draw this example of that I have in my pocket always. I today have 2 IDs that are issued by the United Arab Emirates that have 2 different names on them. Not because I have 2 different names, because in the end there's a duplicate record of me with a different spelling. So I have a name that is Saqr Ereiqat, and I have an ID that says Ereiqat. So what this means is that the government right now has essentially 2 records of me, and even more so. And it's making the government as we know it increasingly difficult to deal with this kind of duplicate information, to find a single source of truth. So government as we know it is spending a lot of time in validating the same information, or validating, let's say, the identity of a person. Just by a quick show of hands, who here is from the UAE or based out of the UAE? All right, okay. How many times have you had to put forward your Emirates ID copy and visa page and passport copy? Everything that we do, we have to do that. Think about how much simpler life would be if we could just say, hey, I'm Saqr Ereiqat, and here's my identity on blockchain. Go and validate it, right? And probably, and that's a concept that's out there right now, every time you validate it, you give me, let's say, a cent. Because, I opened my data to you and I should be paid for that data. And suddenly I'm taking out that middleman that's making money on validating my records. So what is blockchain? Blockchain, essentially, it will revolutionize the way we see public service delivery. Right? Not just public service delivery, actually any kind of service where we deal with transactions. Because the matter of the fact is it's going to take transactions as we know it and do to them what the internet did to information. Right now, transactions are completely unlinked. Right? It's always difficult to find the trace of a transaction. So what will blockchain do? Blockchain will be the enabler for that service delivery. Right? We're going to be looking at blocks of information that are stored in a chain. They're stored in a way that we know that they're secure and tamper-proof, right? And last but not least, they're open to everyone that needs to have access to them. So blockchain will use 4 key concepts, let's say 3 key concepts to do that. The first one is taking the contract as we know it and putting a smart contract out there. So that's a codified contract. If I give you this microphone, or if I give you Hitesh, if I give you this, you give me money in return. A smart contract. The same way we know it. Now, if I then take that smart contract, I take the second concept of blockchain, which is shared ledger. The shared ledger is essentially that same ledger that we know from our supermarket, or that we know from our bank, or that we know from anywhere where our information is stored, and I share it across the network. So that's the second concept, smart contract, shared ledger. And last but not least, it's the concept of consensus. It's if we all agree that this happened, then this happened, right? Now, the last point is the one where as IBM we stand behind. We say that this could be, we need to add a layer of privacy in there, right? But that's not applicable to all blockchains. That's applicable to permissioned blockchains, right? So we're going to say that anyone who has access to the network needs to be verified on that network. Now, we see His Highness Sheikh Rashid, His Highness Sheikh Hamdan, sorry. His Highness Sheikh Hamdan coming out there last year. It was in October, I think, I think it was in October 2016, saying we want to be a blockchain-powered government. And again, when he said that, and I was speaking to people at the time, they're saying, Dubai is just riding the wave again, they're just jumping on the next train, this is going to fade away. Now, 2 weeks ago, the Dubai government won the Smart Cities Award in the world for the first blockchain-powered government. This isn't just a good idea anymore, they're being recognized for doing that. So visionaries will drive this transformation. It's not there for everyone. It's not something that everyone will start embracing. But what we can tell you already is that there's a multitude of use cases out there that are being used on a day-to-day basis. So let's talk about some of these use cases. The first one is that I would like to bring to you is Banco Santander. Banco Santander, for the football fans, they'll probably recognize it from the sponsorship, but the matter of the fact is they're the largest bank in the Eurozone, right? Banco Santander is a $6.2 billion corporation that drives $6.2 billion in profit, and they have roughly 200,000 people. Now, they need to move money from A to B between their own banks. And they have difficulty in doing that. So they're going to go out there and they're going to use blockchain for that. They're going to create something called the utility settlement coin. And they went out there and they said that they're going to be saving $20 billion annually. Now, I don't know how they arrived at that number, but I thank them for it because they are officially on record saying we're going to save $20 billion annually. And the UK government came out and said, we're going to be saving 2% of GDP by adopting blockchain. The next example that I want to talk to you about is one of trade. Containers on blockchain. Maersk is out there. Maersk, do you know Maersk? Yeah. It's the largest container operator in the world. That blue sign that you see on containers, that's Maersk. They do 70 million containers annually, right? They showed that they are able to save $300 on a $2,300 container just by applying blockchain. Just by applying that technology. That might not sound like a big number, but that's 14% off the top. And if you do 70 million containers and you're saving $200 to $300 per container, that's serious money. Now, the list of use cases is endless. Why? Because we're taking contracts, we're taking ledgers, we're taking agreements, and we're providing a new way for it. So I wouldn't say it's as much of a disruption as much as it is a foundational change. I'm changing the foundation of the way we transact. Not I am, but blockchain is, right? So we're changing the way that we think of transactions. We're changing the way that we think of this business world that we interact with. So yes, it isn't necessarily for everyone right now. There's nothing that says if you don't go on blockchain, you're going to be out of business. Unless you're a middleman, that's a different discussion. But the matter of the fact is that people are defining blockchain networks for others to participate in. And it's these first movers that will define the playing field for everyone else. So is there an immediate need for you to go on blockchain? That's a difficult argument to win. So people ask me, do we have to go on, why should I go on blockchain? My answer is you don't. I don't think that there's anything on blockchain that you can do on blockchain right now that you can't do with any other system. But the matter of the fact is that if you're not out there defining your blockchain network right now, you're eventually going to be part of someone else's business network. So first movers will shape the blockchain world as we know it. And it's absolutely thrilling and exciting to be here in the United Arab Emirates, where this entire country is deciding to be a first mover. Thank you very much for your time, and it's an absolute pleasure to have spoken to you. Questions?
Thank you, Saqr, for a wonderful and enlightening presentation. Just a question about, you are representing IBM Middle East. So any initiative you would like to share with us about blockchain in the Middle East? So
the disclaimer that I normally have to do in the beginning is that anything I say is me, Saqr Ereiqat, and not IBM. But yes, as IBM, we do have, we actually provide people with the ability to start defining blockchains themselves. So we're saying this isn't something that we need to come and do for you in the beginning. You can be out there and go on something called the IBM blockchain platform, and you can set up your own business network there. There's even a free subscription here.
So from the house, any questions for Saqr? There's one from this lady. Yeah, please.
You mentioned one of your slides was the, sorry. Hi, Ofa Mustafa Najahi. You mentioned one of your slides that the freight forwarding industry is going into blockchain. I noticed Aramex was there. Can I understand how they're doing that?
That's a very good question.
I'll switch with
You have to switch on.
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. Now, freight forwarding particularly is an industry where, to date, or the shipping industry, even further than freight forwarding, we're spending $36 billion annually, $36 billion annually on sending documentation from A to B. To anyone that knows how the shipping industry works, you cannot unload a container before the original bill of lading and the packing list has arrived, right? So you need to take that bill of lading and you need to go to DHL and you need to pay money to get that on the other side. And it's a very realistic scenario that happens on day-to-day basis is that the documents don't arrive, but the container is there. And then you start paying demurrage and charges and the list goes on and on. Now with blockchain, we said, let's put everyone that's interested in this trade chain on blockchain. And let's agree that everything that is on blockchain is going to be the single version of truth, right? So me as a customer authority, for example, as soon as the packing list has been loaded or the bill of lading has been issued, I can access that, I can approve that this was the case, and immediately at that very time, it would be ready at the discharge port. Freight forwarding as we know it has a lot of middlemen. A lot of people that in the end take or provide services that aren't necessarily a value-added services. They are there to ensure that these documents are cleared, that you're working with the custom authorities. So once we do apply blockchain to that equation, it becomes very difficult for a freight forwarder to make a case that he needs to exist. And that's not only the case for freight forwarders, that's the case for anyone that's in the middle that isn't providing a value-added service. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Any further questions? Maybe someone with a mic who can go around.
Yeah, so there was a video that was shared in between, and in that there was a point which was raised that not everyone is ready to embrace it, right? So how to go around this? Like, do we not have to push others to embrace it, or just go with the flow?
Thank you for that question. What do you think is the right thing to do?
Right now, I think we should go with the flow.
Go with the flow.
But that will not help, because we have to educate and create awareness as well, which we are trying. as a industry, like every cryptocurrency project, every blockchain project, they are doing that. But like people are not ready to listen to us. Like I'm not sure like if they are waiting for something drastic to happen or something to change in the global economy, traditional economy, but they are not listening at the moment.
Thank you, Akshay. I feel the same way sometimes. But the matter of the fact is, and this is a personal point of view, I cannot tell you that this is, you know, the official stance to take. I don't believe that we need to push anyone on it. Again, when people ask me, why should we be on blockchain? My answer is you don't. There's nothing that you can do on blockchain that you can't do with any one of the existing systems. You can do it faster, more securely, with less investment, yes. But I'm yet to see something that you can do on blockchain that is completely impossible with any other tool that we have out there, right? And one point, actually, that you raised, and please, if you don't take anything away from this speech, please take away, blockchain is not cryptocurrency, and cryptocurrency is not blockchain. So even cryptocurrencies is just one application. And anyone that argues that you have to be on it, I don't know, I take a stance against that. There's nothing to say that you have to be on it. I do believe you should be on it, right? And like I said at the very end, if you're not on it right now, you're eventually going to be part of someone else's network. Because that was the World Economic Forum speaking. We have Christine Lagarde out there saying, Christine Lagarde, the head of the IMF, 3 weeks ago, I love her for it. She came out and she said, if you're not talking about blockchain, it's like you're not talking about PCs in the 1990s. Right? So this is now becoming more and more real. Blockchain, there's something called the hype cycle that is issued by Gartner for new technologies. And blockchain has moved from that peak of inflated expectation slowly but surely down. So it's slowly but surely becoming real.
All right, thank you. Saqr and all speakers will be available for questions on the sidelines.
Excuse me, I need to leave.
Yeah, so thanks again, Saqr. And now we move to the second speaker.